Greetings, YouTube. A Florida court has ruled that the state's ban is unconstitutional. A win for the good guys. Now, this case to me is kind of transparent.
The people in question, or the man in question, has been a foster parent for two brothers, two boys, who have been in his care for 6 years and have come out of an abusive home. The state felt that he was trustworthy enough to be a foster parent, and he actually applied to adopt the children, and the adoption agency made the assessment that he was fit to be an adoptive parent. But because of the policy in the state of Florida, the adoption was denied. So the state of Florida thinks that this man, Mark Gill, I think his name is a good enough parent to be in charge of these boys for 6 years, but not good enough to be a real parent. He's only allowed to be a so-so parent. That doesn't work. Now, for just the surface layer, this case needed to be taken care of. Whenever you have a segment of Americans that are isolated and marginalized by the majority, that's when the judicial branch needs to step in and say, you're not allowed to discriminate against these people just because they are a minority. And that's the reasoning that this law was put into effect. Gay people are a minority in Florida. The majority, the heterosexual community, voted to marginalize them. So that's what the job of the courts is, to say, no, you don't get to do that. It is the court's job to defend minority rights. But of course, there's a much bigger issue. How much hypocrisy is the state of Florida showing when it allows a person to be an adoptive parent if they're single and heterosexual, or it allows them to be a foster parent regardless of their gender or marital status or sexual orientation or sex, but won't let them adopt? Where is the sense in that? What kind of logic says that you can be a foster parent for 6 years, but you can't adopt those kids? What kind of warped and twisted person thinks that makes sense? Not to mention, what are you putting those kids through? These kids have found a home with someone that loves them and cares for them. And then the state comes around and says, they can't be your parent. You don't get one. Come on, folks. That's absurd. This man wants to adopt these boys. I'm making the assumption these boys want him to adopt them. The home was decided it was a fit environment for the adoption. The only thing standing in the way were people in Florida said that they were such profound bigots that they had to pass a statute that said, no, if you're gay, You don't get to adopt. I'm amazed that it's the year 2010 and we're still arguing over this kind of thing. And I know what people are going to say. They're going to say, we're afraid for the children. Well, guess what, folks? Every gay person I've ever met, every gay person I've ever encountered, in person, online, anywhere, was raised by straight parents. All of them. So obviously, the orientation of the parents had no bearing whatsoever on the orientation of the children. So these brothers will grow up and be whatever orientation they're gonna be. The fact that their parent, or hopefully their real parent soon, happens to be gay is probably going to have zero impact on that. Your heart loves who your heart loves. It has nothing to do with your parents. I can tell you right now that my parents gave me a really crappy example of a heterosexual marriage. My father was an abusive drunk. My mother was a passive-aggressive enabler. I don't think I ever saw them be pleasant to each other once in the entire time I lived with them for my first 14 years of my life. If that were any indication of my future heterosexual relationships, I wouldn't have had any.
But guess what, folks? I'm straight. I really like women. Always have. Since I was about 5. Had nothing to do with my parents. Had to do with me. And then I know that I'm going to find some haters out there that are going to say that the children are at risk because their parent or their foster parent is a homosexual. That somehow being gay means that a child is more in danger in your presence. And that kind of snide comment, that the innuendo that a gay person is somehow a greater risk to a child than a straight person, nauseates me. And of course, it's not borne out by facts in the least, because in reality, 80% of people who have been found guilty as child molesters have been heterosexual males. And the last 20% is made up of by heterosexual females and then our gay members of our community. I believe that lesbians are the smallest percentage. But that kind of thing is what you find amongst the bigots, the small-minded, the intolerant, those that endorse inequality in a land that is supposed to have equality for all. So, the good news is our court decided to set things right. I'm hoping that this court case stands. I'm hoping that the appeal does not happen. That these kids get to have a parent for real. That this man who loves these boys can someday look at his kids, and say, "You're my sons."